thank you for joining me for the tutorial for the Mist-ical Trinket Tote. Kind of a tongue twister. So today we'll be using a 5mm hook, and we are going to start by making a magic ring for our granny squares. I'm not quite sure what to call these granny squares yet because they're a combination of a few I saw in a granny square book that I have. Oh, I should be instructing. So you're going to chain 3 and then you're going to make a double crochet. After it, you're going to chain 1 and repeat the process of double crochet, chain 1 7 more times to have it 8 times in total. By the way, if you do not know this about me, I like making sure my ends are super short whenever I make magic rings so that I can tuck it in, very easily when I do my first round. But if that is difficult for you to hold, please make your magic ring ends longer, okay? So once you have completed your last one, you're going to be making a slip stitch into your first double crochet. Chain 1 and it should look something like this. Chain once more and now we'll be making a puff stitch. By doing this, you're going to be making a double crochet in the chain space, but you're only going to be going through the first 2 loops. Then you're going to do that once more where you just go through the first 2 loops. So we have our posts on our hook. With the 3 loops on our hook, we are now going to yarn over, pull through all of those, and chain 1. Now you're going to go into your double crochet space, make this same stitch by having 2 half-made double crochets, yarn over, pull through all 3, but this time we are chaining 2. So we are going to repeat a process of making this double crochet chain 1 and double crochet chain 2. How I remembered which one I was on, if I was going in between the chain space, I was just chaining 1 after, and if I was going into the double crochet, I was chaining 2 after. You'll see why we're doing a combination of chain 1 and chain 2 in the next row. Once you have completed this round, we are now going to be making a slip stitch right after our first double crochet, and then chain 1. For this round, we will be making the petal-like stitches all around. So first, I'm going to start by making a single crochet in my chain 1 space, then I will chain 2. Now, I'm going to be making a puff stitch in that chain 2 space. This is by doing the double crochet we did in the previous round, but instead with 3 posts. So we should have 4 loops on our hook. Then we yarn over and pull through all those. Then we chain 1. We are now going to repeat that process of making the puff stitch in the same chain 2 space. Once you've completed your second puff stitch, then you're going to chain 2 and single crochet into the chain 1 space. We are then going to repeat the process of chaining 2, puff stitch, chain 1, puff stitch, chain 2, and single crochet across till we have 8 of these. This is how it's going to look in the granny square. Do you see how they kind of look like petals? Pretty neat, right? Okay, I will show you one more time. So we're going to make the puff stitch in the chain 2 space by having 3 of our half-made double crochets. Then we yarn over and pull through all those loops, chain 1, then make another one of our 3 half-made double crochets. And we go through all those loops, this time chain 2, then we make a single crochet in the next chain 1 space. I will meet you once this row is completed. Making my last single crochet, instead I'm going to slip stitch, then now I'm going to chain 3. For round 4, we will now be identifying the corners of the granny square. So first, I'm going to be making a treble crochet because our chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 3, then make another treble crochet and double crochet in that same space. Now I'm going to chain 4 and make a double crochet in between the next 2 petals. And so my petals are more defined, I made my stitch in the chain 1 space from round 2. I'm going to chain 4 again and then make our corner once more by doing a double crochet, treble crochet, chain 3, treble crochet, double crochet. Now, like we did before, we are going to chain 4, double crochet in between the next 2 petals in the round 2 chain 1 space, chain 4, and then and repeat the process of our corner. Please do this same process for the next 2 corners, and I will meet you back here. So for our last one, we are just going to be making a slip stitch in our chain 3 spot. Now chain 1. For the final round of our granny square, we are going to be making single crochets all around. I began by making the 2 single crochets, 1 in the double crochet, 1 in the treble crochet. Then I made 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets in the corners. Single crochet in the treble crochet, single crochet in the double crochet. Then I made 4 single crochets on our chain 4, and I skipped the double crochet and continued making 4 single crochets in the other chain 4 space. We are going to be doing the same process for our chain 4 spaces and our corners, how we make a single crochet in the treble crochet, single crochet in the double crochet, 2 single crochet, chain 2, 2 single crochet, you know what I mean. Once you have made it to your last one, we are just going to make a slip stitch in our starting single crochet, chain 1, and fasten off. And there you go! This is your granny square. We are now going to be making 9 more, and because I used a multicolored yarn, no 2 of my granny squares are alike. So here they all are, stacked up, very pretty. Now I'm going to show you how we will assemble our bag. First, you have to decide which you would like as your front. Since the bag is reversible, technically we will be using both, but you should decide which one you favor. I decided to do the trinket trove side with the back, since it made the petals pop out more and more bubbly vibes, if you know what I mean. So here I am turning them so they're more like diamonds, and I'm laying them out how they're gonna be. Here I'm folding a granny square in half to show that that will be the side. Same for another granny square with the other side, and then also for the bottom of the bag. Lastly, the granny squares for the other side of the bag, and I tried laying mine out with the color gradient of the top being light and the bottom being dark. Later on I rearranged it a little bit. Time for sewing! Just joking, we are not sewing, we are actually stitching them together. 'Cause sewing sucks! No, I'm just kidding. Sewing is great. It's just not for me when it comes to crochet. So here I grabbed the beginning 2 side panels, and you're going to decide which you'd like the stitching to be on top of. I decided my front of the granny squares to have the stitching showing. So here I'm going to be making a slip knot. I will place it on my hook, then make a chain 1. We will be slip stitching to quote unquote sew our granny squares together, only in the front loops of our granny squares. For the chains here, I'm just going into the chains individually to slip stitch them together. Slip stitching the granny squares together is a tedious process, but personally I believe that it is faster than sewing. If you wish to sew your granny square panels together, you are welcome to, and just scroll through ahead of the video so then you can see how I put the granny squares together, like what order I did it, because I only had to add my yarn 2 times. Once you have made it to the end of these 2 granny squares, it should look something like this. Stretch it out if you need to, but I'll be stretching it out once I've completed sewing. I mean slip stitching. Oh, and the other side should look something like this. Now I'm going to flip it back to where it's supposed to be and lay it where it was, so then I can figure out which to sew next. Now I'm going to be sewing the 2 side parts together, and I'm laying the granny squares flat so I see that I sew along this whole edge. Well, slip stitch along the whole edge, but I'm just gonna keep saying sewing because I know that I'll forget to say slip stitch. To connect my pieces, I simply made a slip stitch into the chain 2 space, and I just simply continued slip stitching along like I've done for my previous granny square, and we will continue slip stitching along the same way for this whole sewing process. Fast forwarding to the corner of the granny square, we are now going to lay our piece back where it's supposed to be, and we will see that we will need to be sewing onto the other side of these 2 granny squares. Here I'm just slip stitching along the other sides of the 2 granny squares. Very, very simple. Choppy magic! Woohoo! I finished sewing that side so fast. Now, once again, I'm going to lay my piece flat, then I will see that my next 2 panels are the opposite side of the ones that I started sewing. Now I'm just going to add the panels. Oh, and be sure you are not flipping your granny squares so that some of them are being sewn on the wrong side. If you want it to be mismatched, like some are facing front, some are facing back, that would be cool too. It'll be more abstract, I suppose. More unique. Bam! I finished doing that whole granny square slip stitch sewing row thing. Woohoo! Now I'm once again going to lay it flat and see where my pieces are. It can look kind of complicating at the moment, but don't worry, we will figure it out. Okay, that's about good. So from here, we are now going to be sewing these granny squares together on the same side as we had just been sewing. Not the front part, because then we would be closing our bag. These ones behind. I'm trying to make that really clear so you don't accidentally crochet over. Okay, rotating my bag. Now I'm going to slip stitch sew these ones together, and I'm going down in my motion of slip stitching. Whoa, so fast. Guess what I set the speed to? It's 34.6, very specific. Oh, and we're done. Okay, now we're going to be joining our next two granny squares. These are the corner pieces, so like before, we will be doing both sides of these two granny squares. But first, I'm going to put my bag back to where it began, how the pieces are supposed to be aligned to make sure that I get the right granny squares to attach together. These two ones, guys. Okay, here we go. Sew. Make sure we are doing both sides of these granny squares. Very, very simple, not too complicated. And if you're getting confused with where your granny squares are in the arrangement, just go back in the video and maybe pause as to where I'm holding where the granny squares are supposed to be and where I'm pointing out where you need to use your next granny squares for our slip stitch sewing. Here I am quickly working into the corner, just making single crochets into those chain spaces and then making our slip stitches across. Once you're finished, it should look something like this, and then we will be attaching our final granny square back to one of the granny squares we started sewing with, the middle one. And I think you know exactly where we will be slip stitch sewing. La la la! Once you have made it to the end, you're just going to make sure those granny squares are all attached together, and then I just slip stitched into the other of my first granny squares that I sewed, and then I made a chain one and fastened off, and then I'm just tucking in my end. But honestly, you don't have to, because we'll be single crocheting over that area later on. Now for the next sewing bit, we will be sewing these side parts together. I'm going to start by making a slip knot and attaching it to the bottom part of the bag by connecting one of the sides with the middle granny square panel, and then pulling my slip knot through and chaining one like I did before when starting the other sewing part. What are we gonna do? You guessed it, slip stitch along, and we are going to be making slip stitches left across those two granny square groups, and then we'll be switching to the other side of the bag and slip stitching across the other two granny square groups. And remember, slip stitch in the front loop only. Here I am moving on to the next group of granny squares, and honestly this row should be easier since we have all our granny squares in place. You know, we are not having to reconfigure our bag as to where we want it for when we attach our granny squares like we did the previous round. And once you finish that second group, we are now going to flip the bag and repeat the process going downwards, and when we get to that middle in between, we'll be making a slip stitch. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the bottom of our bag, back to where we started, we are now going to be going up left across the other two groups and then flipping the bag and back down the other two groups. So essentially the same process we just did, but for the other side of the bag. Ta-da! Your bag should be looking something like this. And now I'm just going to make sure that there are no gaps in these seams right where I've been slip stitching. Then I'm going to fasten off my yarn and tuck in my end. Now you should have something looking like this. What does our bag need now? Straps! So using the remainder of my yarn skein, I'm going to work on the straps. And based off of how much I have, I guess I'm going to be playing yarn chicken. So I'm going to use more colors. I'm going to use these two. Now, which one should I do for the strap? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, get your tiger pie. So if you holler some go, my mother says to pick the very best one, and you are it. Just kidding, I'm using both. Anywho, we're going to start by making a slip knot. Never let them know your next move. We are going to make a slip knot. Then we are going to attach it to any part on the bag you'd like. I just decided to do it right here in the side. And now I'm going to single crochet across this entire top part of the bag. Also tuck in your slip knot end as you are doing your single crochets along the edge. Oh, but first we will need to be making the strap. So, not in the chain space or the single crochet before, but the single crochet before that. We are going to be chaining 75 because what we are doing now is starting our strap. So forgive me for saying that we're single crocheting across the whole top edge because technically we are, but first we have to make the strap. So remember, we're not doing the chain space or the single crochet next to it, but the single crochet before that. Once you're done, you're not going to single crochet in the chain space or the single crochet to the left of it, but the second single crochet to the left of it. Now continue single crocheting along until you get to the other top of the granny square. For the fold, I just crocheted a single crochet in the granny square below and continued single crocheting along the granny square. And once again, we're not going to go in the chain or the single crochet to the right of it, but the second single crochet to the right of it, we're going to start and chain 75. Now, back to our other side, we're not going to go into the chain space or the single crochet to the left of it, but the second single crochet to the left of it. Oh my goodness. And finish off crocheting the rest of the granny square. So then we can connect, chain 1, fasten off. Don't worry about weaving in your ends. For the next part, we will be weaving it in with our stitches. So now as you can see, we have very skinny, thin straps, the size of our bathing suits. We'd crochet for summer. Please tell me you get that reference or else it's not gonna make any sense. So with my lighter blue yarn, I'm going to make a slip knot and attach it to the chain 2 space of my granny square. I'm now going to be making a double crochet onto the chain and continue making double crochets all along the chain. This is how we'll make our straps sturdy. Once you have made it to the other side, we are going to be making a slip stitch in that chain 2 space, chain 1, and fasten off. And we are going to also be doing another row on top of this, so you don't need to worry about weaving in your ends here. Now I'm going to duplicate that same process onto the other side of the bag. Ta-da! Your strap should look something like this. Now we're going to be single crocheting with blue on the inner side. So we're going to make a slip knot, attach wherever you'd like, and just single crochet along the whole inner part of the strap and weave in those ends as you go. Also, like before for the sides, when I got to like a crevice, I suppose, I did a single crochet into the granny square below, and then continued making single crochets alongst the next granny square. And once you get back to where you started, slip stitch, chain 1, fasten off, but this end you will have to weave in. Now please repeat this process onto the other side. Now we are going to begin the ruffles on our straps. First, you're going to attach your yarn to the outside round of the bag, essentially to where we made our first row, made the chains of 75. But now you're going to chain 2 and make double crochet increases in all of the back loops only of this row, except for the chain. For the chain, you're just going to make double crochet increases onto the chain. Also, has this tutorial been okay so far? Please let me know if there's any way I can improve. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please tag me if you post it or send it to me. I'd love to see what you create. If you'd like more tutorials, please follow me. Oh, and make recommendations of what you'd like tutorials of. I'm always open to new ideas of what to make. So once you get to the chain, you're going to begin recording in the loops of the chain. And I made sure to go into each single loop individually, but if you'd like to just go into the chain space between, that is fine. I just find that by going to the loop, it ruffles a bit more. And if you want your project to be super duper ruffly, make 3 double crochets in the spots every now and then. Okay, so after a few double crochet increases, my ruffles are starting to look like this. Now you're going to continue doing it all the way around until you have something like this. And this is me showing you one side and then flipping it around, and I'm going to finish the other side. Yay! All done. And sadly, I ran out of my colorful yarn and had to pick up with my blue yarn. But at least it kind of blends in. I guess I just lost yarn chicken. Anyways, you are done with the bag base. Congrats! See the next part for the keychains and embellishments. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye!